don't just give up.
Right. All right, so we should be live now.
For everybody that's logging in, we're getting ready to get started, so just hang tight. Okay, folks, we're just waiting for our presenter to arrive. We will get started shortly. Okay. Angie and Derek, do you guys want to get started and we could just do some housekeeping things first as related to Jumpstart?
Yeah, so I think Kelsey has arrived. She should be in here. I don't know if you can't see her, her video.
Oh, okay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Kelsey.
Sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties.
No problem. No problem. We were just warming up the audience. So, okay, folks. Well, welcome to the Jumpstart Germantown Jumpinar, and we have got a really great presentation for you tonight. Our presenter is Kelsey Lee, but before I give her her due and her introduction, Derek, would you like to explain how we normally run things on our Jumpinars here in Zoom?
Sure. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this Jumpinar where we're demystifying the new world of eCLIPSE. Just some housekeeping stuff. If you want to ask any questions, you can use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom toolbar on the Zoom screen there. And then also, Kelsey will be asking the audience some questions using the polls feature on Zoom. So that will just prompt up on your screen automatically. You don't need to do anything except answer it there. But yeah, and then stick around after the end. We'll have a little networking session and some other stuff throughout that you'll see in the agenda in a second here. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Derek. And Angie, would you like to give everybody an update on how things are going with Jumpstart Germantown? Any news to share in terms of the loan division or any other upcoming webinars that you'd like the audience to know about?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We are still lending, so if anyone has a project that they're interested in, definitely check out our website to apply. You can email me, Angie@PhillyOfficeRetail.com, with any questions you might have. All of our loan terms and everything are on the websites as well. And then as far as upcoming webinars, next week we do have L&I. We're going to have a staff member from License and Inspections who will be on to talk about permitting specifically for new developers and what is important to make sure you do before starting any project. So that'll be next week. And then a couple of other ones coming up. We have one on landscaping and greening the outside of properties that you're going to be for your investment properties. And then also the one that we postponed last week for the rental improvement fund with impact services. That'll be at the end of the month. So definitely check out our website for those that are coming up, and we'll also be sending out emails on those as well. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Angie. Okay, so folks, our presenter tonight is Kelsey Lee. Kelsey is a licensed expediter in the city of Philadelphia and is also the president of a boutique firm called PhillyKelsey&Co. She is part of the 9% of women who work in construction, and she mediates with the city of Philadelphia on behalf of her clients when filing residential and commercial projects. Coupled with her YouTube channel and specialized consulting services for sustainable demolition projects, her goal is to educate, and she has spoken to multiple organizations, including Better Than Success, HAPCO, and now, of course, Jumpstart Germantown. Kelsey wasn't always in real estate. Following the completion of degrees in psychology and advertising, she launched a 6-year career as an ad executive, beginning with KYW News Radio, and she also worked for Philadelphia Weekly and RentPath before transitioning to full-time entrepreneurship. Her first organization was founded at the age of 22, the Philadelphia Spin Coalition, which has seen over 5,000 students participate to date, working with Philadelphia's most prominent organizations, including Parks and Recreation and several police districts. She has been recognized with numerous awards from CBS, Philadelphia Weekly, Philly Ad Club, and the Creative Kids Club. And her successes have also been featured by numerous media outlets such as Philly.com, 14th Street Magazine, Philly Voice, Philadelphia Magazine, and generosity.org. Her contributions have been guided by her moral compass, and with the encouragement of her friends, family, and network, she positions herself as a connector and leader within the community by doing right by her clients and getting the job done. Welcome, Kelsey. Very, very excited to hear from you tonight about the new system called eCLIPSE. So, before we jump into it, was there a poll that you wanted to start off with, a survey?
Yes, there was. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. I believe it's actually after I kind of get into the slides, but we can do it now if you want.
Okay.
So yeah, let's start off with a poll.
Well, first of all, what is eCLIPSE? What does the acronym stand for?
So it is the Electronic Commercial Licensing and Inspections I'm like blanking right now. It's a very long way.
Yeah. It's a catchy acronym, but it's a lot of letters.
It's a very
Okay.
Electronic commercial licensing and inspections. And what does the P stand for?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
So,
I have it in my in the description for.
Okay.
Yeah, for the event, but I don't have the event in front of me.
Okay, it's not a pop quiz. So sorry, not a pop quiz. So okay, so the first survey question is, what for our audience out there, what is your experience using eCLIPSE? We're trying to figure out how many people on this webinar tonight are already familiar with the system, or this is their first time hearing about it. So folks, there should be a survey poll question on your screen, and take a few seconds. What is your experience using eCLIPSE? And here are the answers. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Second answer, my account is registered, but that's about it. Third answer, my first and only permit application got rejected. Oh no. Number 4, I have a few permits filed, but none issued. And the last one is, 1 or more permits have been issued and I have the permit in hand. I have a feeling that last one is going to have very few
Yeah.
very few responses. So Derek, what are the responses coming in? Can Kelsey see those?
Yep, I just
can see that.
shared the responses here.
So Kelsey, it says 41% of the audience, this is the first time they're hearing about it, and 47% have an account already, but they haven't used it, looks like.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
And it looks like, ooh.
We've got a couple of pros on here too.
We do. This is awesome.
That's great.
Fantastic.
Okay. And was there another poll question that you wanted to kind of gauge the audience in terms of who was a contractor?
Yeah, like, who are you guys? I want to know who I'm talking to.
Okay, great. So choose a selection that fits your reason for joining us today. Are you a property owner, a contractor, an architect, an engineer, or an attorney?
And if you're new into the world of real estate and you want to become an owner, just click the property owner button.
Okay. Okay, great.
Awesome.
So 73% of the people tuning in right now are property owners, and then 35% have also said that they're contractors. That's great.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And what eCLIPSE stands for, since I messed it up the first time, is the Electronic Commercial Licensing Permit Services Enterprise. Yes, it is a mouthful.
That should be a Jeopardy question.
You're right.
What is eCLIPSE? Right.
And if you ask your Alexa or Siri, no, it is not an eclipse, moon, or sun. It is an actual software.
That's great. So Kelsey, yeah, so take us into the world of eCLIPSE here in Philadelphia.
Awesome. I'd be absolutely happy to. So I put together a presentation, and I'm just going to get this loaded up now. 1 second. Okay. All right. Okay. So can everyone see?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. All right, so we're just gonna skip through that. Okay, so a little bit about our company. as Alina so wonderfully announced, we are a licensed expediting firm that prepares and retrieves compliant documentation for all types of construction in Philadelphia County. So a little bit about our company. We actually launched last year, August of 2019. We actually just hired our 3rd staff member. And we, I guess, we're considered eCLIPSE and experts in eCLIPSE. We've used it for a lot of permits, as you guys can see on the map here. And this is our general footprint of the location of the permits that we're getting. We have about 46 active clients right now, actually precisely 48, property owners and developers, contractors, architects, and attorneys. So pretty much anyone can hire an expediter or, use their services, whether it's for delegating or just because of troubleshooting, which I've seen more recently because of the use of eCLIPSE being the only way that you can get permits and licensing and certificates filed. So we do have experience filing a wide variety of different permits, and we do our best to keep our community and our network informed, especially during the shutdown. There's a lot of changes, and in fact, eCLIPSE is one of those softwares that is literally being updated every single day. So it's really important that we keep up the pulse on eCLIPSE because we use this for our business, but it's also important that we let our community know what's exactly going on. So you can find that out if you join our e-newsletter, which I'll get to the end of the presentation. And then also our most unique service is green demolition. So we actually consult on demolition projects to make them sustainable. And we do this by diverting waste and donating the reusable building materials to local RCOs. So this is a relatively new model, but I have a lot of experience facilitating this with deconstruction appraisers who are not local. So this is a really exciting up and coming sector, and I just love demolition. I don't know, I just do. So if you have any questions about the demolition process, you can certainly reach out to me and I'll probably just run my mouth. But so the challenge and why the reason that expediters really exist is the application process is very cumbersome. Applying for permits takes time. Not knowing the required forms in advance delays the issuance of the permits, which I believe is going to be the next upcoming workshop, Jumpinar, which is awesome, and I definitely want to get into that. eCLIPSE is new, it's not user-friendly, and the staff is not necessarily as well trained as they could have or would have hoped. Now, as you guys know, there was a scheduled introduction for eCLIPSE to allow the submission of plan submissions literally right when the shutdown happened. So the shutdown happened, eCLIPSE was transitioning, and it was kind of like all over the place. So it took a little bit for the staff to actually get up to speed on how to use eCLIPSE on the back end, and I've been able to figure out the front end. So working with our network, being able to tap into additional resources and experiences, we've been able to really understand eCLIPSE. So with that being said, the solution is an expeditor. So I don't know if many of you know what an expeditor is, but it is a license that the city of Philadelphia has that allows someone like myself to file on behalf of a contractor, attorney, property owner, and design professional like an architect and engineer. So I basically pull all of those documents together and ensure that the process is managed and efficient from start to finish. So as part of our expediting role, we work with many different people. So we have a very diverse network of clients. And in addition to that, it's a really great opportunity for us to be able to facilitate referrals. So one of the things that I've been saying during the shutdown and now that eCLIPSE is up and running, there have been a lot of technical issues, and some of these I'm going to go through today. But that being said, with the technical side, you know, having the ability to tap into experts or contractors that have had success getting permits pulled is something that was about a month ago a very rare commodity. So knowing that you have people that you can rely on for trustful resources is never a bad thing. So this is something that we freely give out, and you can contact us at any time for a referral. And actually, something I did want to throw in there, we are building up a library of different categories of professionals. So someone like a property owner could contact us and be like, hey, I'm looking for a licensed electrician. Do you know of any? We would actually be able to automatically, within a few minutes, send out a bid request. So they actually can reach out to you instead of the other way around. So that's something that we're working on, but not quite yet. So a little bit of an update. I put together this timeline to help visualize all of the different changes that have taken place over the last few months. So as you guys know, and something that I just said, March 14th was when the digital permits with plans launched on eCLIPSE. This was also the same time that the city shut down. So the entire L&I staff has been working remotely, and they have had to deal with working remotely and the transition of working remotely, just like anyone else, any other business that is no longer to commingle in an office space like they have established in the routine for years and years. So, you know, it was definitely a very challenging time. And leading up to that, construction did stop on March 27th. And then another update came into play as the state was starting to talk about reopening. On April 29th, they announced that the site safety managers are needed. So any construction site, you had to get this free certification that you can get online, and you'd be able to operate safely. And then on May 8th, the construction was then allowed for single and two family. And I was also paying attention to the judge orders. This will come into the play as I go into September, but the courts are suspended until September 9th. So although there's not any definitive dates or any kind of communication formally as to when the municipal services could be reopened and you'd be allowed to go back down there and file in person, my best assumption is that this is probably going to happen sometime in September. So the idea is that it's really important to get used to eCLIPSE because this is going to be the way of life for at least a little bit. And I also just had to put out there that restaurants are going to be opening with outdoor dining because I'm really excited about that. Okay, so here's a chart. Oh, sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So that is a big piece of news about the courts. Can you talk a little bit more about how that could potentially impact the whole process? And thank you very much for creating this timeline because it's so helpful to see beginning, middle, and end, so to speak. Is there anything more that you can talk about with regards to the courts being closed and how that's going to impact contractors?
So, I mean, how that's going to impact contractors, they didn't really address much of construction outside of some landlord-tenant cases. And I can actually link the official order in the chat if you guys want to review it. It's a lot of information, but essentially what they're saying is that, you know, they're postponing all of the courts cases in the next few months up until September 8th. So generally when one department puts some type of protocol in place and a deadline, usually other departments follow. So that was kind of my basis for the assumption that we would probably be up until September. And for contractors doing the work, you just have to get used to filing on digital and, you know, kind of, what's the word? Kind of like learning by trial and error and knowing that there's going to be some hiccups in the process. but ultimately, you know, it's good to get yourself comfortable with it.
Okay.
But I can certainly put a link so you guys can read more. This chart was a lot of information to go through.
Oh, no. Great. This is great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
please continue. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So before I get into a live demonstration of a permit filing through eCLIPSE, I wanted to give you guys some highlights on the differences of MSB, which is short for the Municipal Services Building, versus eCLIPSE. So customer care for the Municipal Services Building, I'm sure that, you know, we have several people in here watching this video that have probably been down to the Municipal Service Building and filed in paper. And that's what the majority of contractors are used to, which is also why I've gotten so many calls from contractors, because she's like, I don't know how to use the system. But the customer care desk would usually let you know upon arrival which application to submit, which is really helpful because, you know, anyone new starting something new, you're going to have questions like, oh, like I need to do this and this and this. And that person at the desk, before they give you the ticket, would usually tell you, okay, you need this form. So unfortunately, eCLIPSE isn't that user friendly. It's not going to tell you and decipher all of your documents verbally, or take a look at what you got on the desk. You actually have to know which permit you're applying for. And I've had several people tell me that their permits actually got rejected because they didn't use the proper form. And hot tip, if you do go through the application and you do get a rejection, they are issuing a transfer fee courtesy. But I know that they're not doing this a lot. It's mostly when you have things, it can go either way. They can give you a transfer filing fee courtesy, or they can just be like, hey, sorry, you got to start over your non-refundable application fee for $25 if it's single or two family, or $100 if it's commercial. Unfortunately, is not able to be transferred to the new application. So it's really important to know which application you're gonna be submitting, and asking for others for help. Ask people who have done this before, because once you get through that, it's a real pain to start it over again. So it's better just to get it right out the gate. So another feature that you guys are probably familiar with is the tax clearance. So traditionally on paper, the contractors would have to print out a tax clearance form. And you typically did this down in the basement level of MSB on those very unsecured computers. So I'm really happy to see that not really being the case. I don't know if they're going to bring this back once the building reopens, but eCLIPSE actually handles this for you. So contractors don't need to print it out. It's all in the system. So while you have extra steps that you haven't done before, it takes away steps that you may have been a little bit frustrating in the past, which is nice. Easy permits have undergone a lot of changes. Typically, they were just issued at the time of the visit, but all of the permits must be reviewed. So sometimes they take, you know, a few hours, sometimes it's next day, but it can actually take up to 5 days to get an easy permit issued. And for those of you who don't know the difference between easy and standard, the difference is plans. Easy is without plans and standard is with plans. Obviously, easy is easier and quicker, and standard, you have to follow the normal review timeline that's defined by the city. Another difference is MSB. When you filed on paper, they'd issued an RFI letter, which is short for Request for Information, which was issued in a PDF format over email. So the primary applicant would get this PDF. Now, on eCLIPSE, this is not the case. So although I still refer to the reviews as an RFI, because often that means additional information is requested by the plans examiner, this is actually marked inside of eCLIPSE. So for those of you superstars, you already know what I'm talking about. I've actually had issues where I missed the comments because I didn't know where to look. So we'll get to that in a second. But another thing was the permit tracker link. So while the permit tracker link is still useful to share out if you have people on the project that aren't necessarily key components of the project, you can actually send them the link and it still works. But eCLIPSE, you can associate a permit to any eCLIPSE profile. Maybe this is not supposed to be the case, but I've been doing it and it's been working. You know, for your architect, any kind of stakeholders in the project, you are able to associate it by an association code. And I don't know if you guys are aware, or maybe some of you, but I started a YouTube channel that actually goes through these steps and does it in live, just to help you guys understand how to use eCLIPSE a little bit more efficiently. And then lastly, when you were down at MSB, it took a lot of time. And you could only file 3 permits under 1 ticket before you had to go back in line and get another ticket. With eCLIPSE, it's just the time spent filing it on your computer, and submissions can occur 24/7. So if you're, you know, an insomniac and can't sleep and have some work to do, you can file permits at 2 a.m. if you wanted. So that's a nice little perk, convenient perk.
Yeah, that's exactly how I want to spend my Friday nights.
So this is the homepage of eCLIPSE. So as I had stated, it's a little bit it's not as user-friendly as we would have hoped it to be, but you know, with anything new, it does take time to build out a new software, especially one that is as comprehensive as eCLIPSE. So compared to other cities, Philly is actually very, very ahead. And I know that you guys probably have a lot of issues when it comes to permitting, and that's kind of a constant headache is the permitting process. There are a lot of benefits to this that a lot of other cities just aren't up to speed with yet. So although it's a little bit difficult to use, the ability and the privilege that we get and the convenience that we get to use this is actually really awesome. So before I get to that, okay, so as soon as you click the permit application type, so once you go and you're getting ready to file a permit, this is what you're gonna see. So these are all of the current permit types that you can apply for. They're constantly adding new permit types almost every single day. So you're gonna see this list grow as time goes on. And if you have a permit that's a special permit that you don't see on here, there are ways around it, but it's still a little bit tricky. So I'm really excited to see the city get this, you know, totally built out. It's going to make it a lot easier for people to file permits as time goes on. Because right now, like for example, I'm filing an elevator permit. And as you can see, there's no elevator permit specifically. So you have to be a little bit creative. You have to be a little bit patient, you know, as they build out the system. So I wanted to take a poll because I'm about to move into a live demonstration. And I want to know which permit you guys want me to go through the process on. So these are the most common ones. And I'll drill down and actually go through the process from start to finish and kind of explain some things, and then we'll take some questions. Cool. Okay, so residential is the winner. So I'm going to do a residential permit. commercial zoning and plumbing, I would love to go through this with you because especially the commercial, it's a little bit more complicated. The plumbing is also a little bit complicated. The city tax on different fees for different things. Sometimes with plumbing, it's mostly fixtures. But you guys can certainly reach out to me at a later date, or I can post up a video about this on YouTube. I'm happy to do that. So, but we're gonna go do a residential permit. So thanks guys for voting. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do now, this is my eCLIPSE account. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what it's gonna look like once you start filing a lot of permits, it's gonna look like this. So one of the things that I want you guys to be wary of is that when you click the permit type that's on here, it's gonna automatically create a draft, which is nice because it already assigns it with a permit number. But if you get out of it and then you click it, the same thing again, it's going to continue to create drafts of the same thing over and over again. I've gotten into a lot of eCLIPSE profiles for my clients and just making sure that everything's associated properly. So there's been a lot of challenges with getting all of the active trade license associated to contractors accounts. So I've had to do some work there to make sure everything is compliant and it doesn't create issues when the permit is ready to be issued. And you can see how many different drafts that they've actually tried creating like over and over and over again. So they have like an entire page of drafts, and the system does not allow you to remove those yet. So save yourself the visual headache and just click on it once and be done with it, and know that it's saved for you so you can always come back to it, even if you exit halfway or your internet goes out or something wonky. So we're gonna start with a residential. So construction. So I'm gonna click on this. There we go. Okay. So here's the first page. So there's a lot more detail when you are filing for permits online than you're used to when doing paper. So the relationship to the permit. So I'm a licensed expediter, so I'm going to click that. And you can see that the system already recognized my expediting license. So if you are a contractor, it would appear in the same way. You'd click on there and then it would drop down. Actually, no, that's through the permit application process. Actually, scratch that. They changed it. They did an update. But if you are the owner, you can say the owner of the property. And then, but if you are the contractor, you'll actually see your contractor license in the drop-down menu. And then you'll have to make sure all your trade licenses are associated to your account properly, which is also on my YouTube channel because this has been like a really big issue over the last 2 months. So you get down here, you choose it, say you're doing one family, we're just gonna, let's do new construction. Because the alterations are a little bit easier as far as paperwork. So right here, there is an existing project you can associate it with. This is one feature that eCLIPSE has that I haven't really used yet. But when you're in the main menu, you can actually define specific projects and name them, like customize it. So if you have a really complex project that has multiple applications, you can use this box to assign it to that project inside of your eCLIPSE account, just to kind of keep things better organized. And then the detailed scope of work is the same thing that you put on the description of the application. So, you know, as per plans, which is pretty much every single application that you're going to be, if you're going through standard, you're going to have to put that language in there. And then standard review, because since April 26th, they took accelerated off the table. So that's not an option right now. All right, so the address. Okay, this part, I wanna give you guys a little bit of a tip here. Any wrong space or spelling out like lane or street might result in no results when you put in the address. So I'm gonna give you guys an example here. So let's do 1, 2, 3, South Broad Street. I don't know if it's gonna come up. Oh yeah, make sure that your pop-ups are enabled, because if they're not, this menu won't appear. Your browser will block it. So there's a bunch of different OPA addresses under this particular location. This is really important to find if you're doing a project, especially if you're a tenant of a commercial building. There's gonna be multiple options for you. So this is the Witherspoon building. This is a pretty historic building. I'm actually handling an elevated permit in this building, which is why it came top of mind. And you have to, if you're not addressing the whole building, you do have to know the specific suite number, which often you can't really find on Google. You're gonna actually have to ask your landlord for the specific number, so you can make sure that you're filing under the correct OPA address. And then for specific location, they might ask you, like if you're doing masonry work, doing like a wall covering permit, they're gonna ask you like where it is in respect to the street. So you would put like side wall or front facing, street facing. And if you don't fill this out, that's fine. The plans examiner will usually just come back and say, hey, I need more details on the specific location. Owner has changed. So this is something that I found really useful. So licensed expeditors, we can file it whenever. Whenever the property needs to be permitted, doesn't matter who the owner is. So my job typically is just fact checking is, hey, like, does this owner that's appearing on, eCLIPSE match the owner of what the property should be? And if it's not, click this button and you'll have to input information there of the new owner. And once you get to the end of it, which I'll show you, you'll see a list of documents that are required or optional. And this designation, the deed or the settlement sheet, will be highlighted as an option that you can categorize the uploaded file under. Okay, well, I don't really want to do that, so I'm not going to show you guys then because I don't want to take up too much time. All right, so these are pre-checked. So depending on the address, this is going to show you which departments have special interest in the project. Don't worry, it's not like a black and white thing. It's just kind of giving you a warning, like, hey, this particular address has this type of overlay. Or, because it's, a historical district, they're really focused on the look of the building and what people are going to see and the colors, and they'll make you go through, additional approvals that way, but it's not a make or break. So just because there's like little check boxes that appear here doesn't mean you're going to have to go through that department approval. It's just like a warning. Okay, so here's where it gets a little bit more specific. So you need to know the numbers of stories of work. So on the normal applications, this is what you would put in there anyways. So this is just kind of like a different format that you're translating the old application information to the new. And then as far as this part with the construction under right of way or relocated extended driveway, these are trigger buttons. So if you're gonna select this, you're going to trigger a zoning application. So just be wary of that, which if you haven't gone through the zoning first and you're not doing any driveways or any kind of right of way that you need additional permits for, you don't need to worry about that. But that will trigger additional reviews, just so you guys know. Same with special inspections. So here's the most detailed part of it. Now, I get this information directly from the architect. So, but you do need to know the area of earth disturbance and the new construction area. And it looks like that this particular project does not have a field for alteration area. So if you're doing an alteration or an addition, there'll actually be 3 different columns there. So area of earth disturbance, alteration area, and addition area. But because this is a new construction project, they're just asking for what the new footprint of the property is going to be. And these are all estimates. I mean, at the end of the day, things change, construction plans change, and you know, the eCLIPSE system is equipped for you to revise certain elements of your permit. For anything cost, that has to go to the Department of Revenue. So here you just put in the numbers. Don't put any special characters. You just put in the number there. Say it's like $5,000 there. Say, and then the general cost of construction's like 60K. You have to click calculate before the screen is gonna let you move on. So now that the screen let me move on, we can click next. Occupancy, we're not gonna worry about that because that gets really complicated. So, but for this particular presentation, we're just gonna move on.
So Kelsey, I'm getting some questions.
Yeah.
So one question I have is, will this system save you from yourself? Because you put in that this was a new construction project, but the address you put happened to be a historic building. So would the system, when you get to the end of this process, will the system throw your application out? Because how can there be new construction on a historically designated, you know what I'm saying? Is it?
Yeah. So I put the historic building on there because I had it was just top of mind for me. Just put in an address in there just to show you guys what would come up. Because I knew that would have a lot of OPA addresses associated to it. But yes, so if you are filing a residential project for a residential permit and you open up a commercial permit, your application will get rejected.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to be really careful about that because refunds, this will, first and foremost, the city isn't processing the transfer file fees just yet. And this is as of one that I submitted 2 months ago. So I don't think that they're gonna get to that, at least for several months. So it's just really important, especially if you're applying for a commercial or residential and you put in for a commercial permit, that commercial permit is $100. So the system isn't quite that smart to recognize that you're putting in the wrong permit, but it could. There could be an update that helps us through the process because eCLIPSE has been updated so often, so frequently.
Okay, and then you might have said this already, but the standard review that typically takes 1 to 5 business days to get a
for easy permits.
Easy, okay.
Yeah.
And for the standard, are we looking at 5 to 10 days?
No, so the standard for building permits for 1 to 2 family is 10 days.
10 days.
And then for, 10 days. And then for all other projects, all other permits, it's 20.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. We've got some more questions, but let's continue with your presentation.
Okay. So select contractor. This is a part that I actually addressed in my YouTube video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But you don't have to select a contractor right away. eCLIPSE allows you to go through the entire submission process, the initial filing, without selecting a contractor. So if you're, doing a new construction project on your new home and you're the one filing for the permit, you have time to solicit bids as the application process is moving through. Because this can take sometimes 6 to 8 weeks longer. Actually, I have a permit that was taking up to a year. But it's really how put together you are going into it and how informed you are. And honestly, just getting the right contractors in. Most of the contractors are pretty well equipped with understanding how permits and work. It's just getting over the technical side of using eCLIPSE, at least in the beginning. Okay, so this screen popped up because I put in numbers under the mechanical fuel gas permit details. So if you guys remember, I had left some of those as zeros. Anything that's left as 0 will not pull up an additional page. So the simpler the work, the shorter the application. Now, this is also because I put electrical inside of the initial cost of each individual category. So then you have to select a contractor for that. Now, this is a little bit more advanced as far as processing goes between new construction, because it'll automatically produce any MEP permit, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, automatically. So although the MEP permits aren't issued simultaneously as the building permit is, it will automatically generate those applications and process them at the conclusion and issuance of the building permit. So doing it all at once up front does save you some time, processing time with the city. But you do need more information, so. And then here's where you identify an applicable zoning permit. So because we're filing for residential new construction, the zoning permit you would have had to have. So you put that number in and you search for it and it should pop up. If it doesn't pop up, because this has happened to me before, generally what I'll do is I'll leave this blank because it won't allow you to put any information in here anyways without actually designated the particular link in the search menu. I will upload the zoning permit at the end and I'll show you where I do that. Okay, so if you've reached this page in your permit process, you are almost done. So the nice thing about eCLIPSE is it's going to give you all of the required documents that you need to upload. So right now, it's going to pull up all the potential optional documents. Don't worry about that. Just focus on what's required. So for here, this is one requirement, is the energy conservation compliance document. Then you have the architectural plans. And then you also have the fuel gas plans, because that's what I inputted as a cost when doing the initial overview of costs for the project. And then you just upload the files. So I'm not going to upload any files right now. Well, maybe I should. You know what, I'm just gonna upload like a screenshot just so you guys can see what it looks like. So you're gonna have to designate what document type it is. So if the category isn't listed above, which is above here, it's not going to be listed in the drop-down box. So if you're looking for something like miscellaneous or optional, you're not gonna see it. Because they're only defined, the only files that they want you to upload are the ones that are previously defined. So we'll pick the architectural plans. And, you know, if you have an additional comment like, hey, this is plans with zoning permit, like we were talking about before, that's something that I would put inside of the comment. Generally, we never want to be too proactive when it comes to organizing documents, because sometimes they're not needed. So it's better to let the city tell us if they're needed or not, and then take it from there. And then click next. All right, so this is where you then invite your co-applicant. So you can do this during the application process, but you can also do it after it's been submitted. You can go back to the application on your home page, open it, and you'll be able to invite the co-applicant, which is what I was talking about before. So for the co-applicant, this is also something that I talk about on my YouTube channel. They'll give you the code. So this is actually a live code. Please don't do it. You're not going to get anything. It's a draft. And you'll just have a draft sticking on your eCLIPSE account for forever, foreseeable future. I don't know. I don't know when the city will have a feature to take things off to make it a little bit more pretty. And then we get to the next page, which is a overview of, yep. All right, so this is gonna tell you all the things that you need to fix. So if you didn't fill out a certain box and you were supposed to, this is where you go back and fix everything. So it's really nice. It definitely is, this is the software's way of being like that concierge. And this is also what I've been saying is trial and error. You got to just try it. You got to figure it out. If it doesn't work, there's resources that you can tap into to get help. But I do want to warn you that the city's ability to be responsive to support cases is very, very limited. In fact, a lot of the permits right now are very, very backed up, like we were seeing when the shutdown initially happened. And it's mostly due to what's been going on. You know, the city's been on lockdown with the National Guard. So of course, things aren't going to be operating as they were, but I expect that things will pick back up in a matter of a few weeks. So I'm not going to go any further because eCLIPSE won't let me. It won't let me submit and get to the payment portal because I have a lot of details to fix. So this could be actually one of the new features that they come out with. If you do file the wrong application, maybe it will tell you in this area. But based on the people who have told me that their applications got rejected, that wasn't a feature just yet, but it could be.
Okay, great. So Kelsey, awesome. It's clear why your services are needed. I mean, this this is a
yeah.
undertaking, and just the time savings alone would be worth it. I've got folks asking if you can kind of give what your price range is like. So for somebody who was doing a single family house, what would we be looking at for your fee to help them expedite their permits?
Yeah, so for building permits, because of the process, it takes so long, and the amount of documents that are needed, we start at $9.50 for service fees for building permit, and that'll cover any department stamps that you need, whether it's like the historical commission or city planning or streets department. We'll handle all of that. And we'll coordinate whatever needs directly with the engineer and the architect. So
okay.
we're pretty hands-on about that. The easy permits, like electrical, plumbing, they're $500 a permit, and then you pay the additional fees that the city requires to release the permit.
Okay, and would you recommend, so if the property owner is working with a structural engineer and an architect, who is your client? Is your client the architect, or how does it work when there's so many professionals?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So first and foremost, the city doesn't care. City doesn't care how I get paid. What they care about is that everything is done according to what they need. So if it really depends, sometimes the architect is the one that hires me and they build that into the structure of their services, which I have agreements with several architects who do that. And then you have a property owner that, wants to have that control over their permit, which Rightfully so. And one of the things that I'll get into very briefly a little bit into, I have like a few more slides and that's it, go with tax abatements. You want to make sure that your building permit is right. And we have a business decision that for zoning and building, we only work directly with the property owner just because of so many things that could go wrong if they're done incorrectly. So, but with like the, you know, general construction permits, electrical, mechanical, you know, those are fairly streamlined. It's just getting the correct documents. So whether the contractor pays me, I generally like to say like, hey, if it's a compliance issue, that's your contractor's job. That shouldn't be your job. Because I do have people, especially residential, single family homeowners who are like, you know, I just want this done. Like whatever it takes just to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll say is like, okay, like I need direct contact with your contractor because of so many issues with using eCLIPSE with the contractor compliance, the renewals of the licenses, which has been like a really big thing lately because no one can figure out how to use eCLIPSE to renew the license. So a lot of them have been lapsing and a lot of them holding up the permit issued. So I try to be like flexible and understanding and be like, hey, like, sure, I'll take your money, but like, this is kind of not your job. Like that's like someone else's job. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it really just depends. It's all over the place.
Okay. We've got some more questions that have come in, but if you wanted to continue, let's continue with your presentation.
Sure. It's super, super quick. And then, you know, we'll get some more questions at the end. We already did that. Okay. So this is something that I did in collaboration with Pritzker Law Group and MCA Accounting and Consulting. So with the building permit specifically, it's really important that your costs and the square footage are accurate according to the plans, because that's the only way that that's the only form of legal documentation that the city has of your construction project. And this is also what you use to file a tax abatement. So the 10-year tax abatement, still very much a thing. And this is something that we offer. It's like all comprehensive. You get everything from a CPA, from an attorney if things go wrong, and me managing the process. Because at the end of the day, I'm an expediter. I'm not claiming to know more than attorneys or CPAs or anyone else, professionals that we work with. It's really important that I stay in my role and get you the proper resource that you need for the information that you are questioning. So this is something we do. And then something else I wanted to touch on was automated communication. So I'm really, really big on tech, probably why I spent my quarantine figuring out eCLIPSE, because I wanted to. I really love technology working for you. So we do a really good job at, you know, making sure that all of the professionals on the job are consistently up to date on the status of the permit, because at the end of the day, the permit does control your timeline. So I always suggest for people who are doing rehabs or new constructions start way in advance for pre-construction planning for that. But if you're doing like an addition, I would say start like the permitting process 2 months out. And that way you have some flexibility if your permit takes a little bit longer than expected. Because at the end of the day, our whole philosophy is hurry up and wait. We get things done quickly, but we operate as quickly as the city operates. So as long as it's out of our hands, it's not our fault. And it's kind of reassuring when it's like, you know, off our plate and we're just waiting for that initial review.
Right. Okay.
And here's my newsletter. I hope you guys please sign up. You can go on PhillyKelsey&Co and go to the contact screen. And we don't send that many emails, but the emails that we send are loaded with updates. So that timeline that you guys saw, I actually just put out an e-newsletter last weekend that drills down all of the hot new things that are going on that you should be paying attention to if you're operating in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. If you want to get me a job, you can, just like eCLIPSE, you can delegate 24/7 at PhillyKelsey&Co. And here's our amazing office manager, Elizabeth. When she asked me if I asked her if I could put her picture in, she was like, I don't know. But she is amazing. She handles all of our intake and she coordinates all the project documents. So, you know, we're able to provide superior customer service and to all of our clients. So that's it.
That's great. Great presentation, Kelsey.
Thank you.
So Kelsey, yeah, we've got a lot of questions. If you want to go back to the slide that has your website address and the newsletter sign up on it, or would you hit this slide?
Well, both of them are. This one's the newsletter,
Okay.
PhillyKelsey, and then this one has it too.
Okay, there it goes. Right. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So some of these questions are very particular, and if they're too specific, you just say, you know, we should pass and move on to the next question. But we have a question here from somebody who wants to know, they said that they're being told by their examiner that they need a zoning permit in addition to a general building permit just to put up a 4-foot high deck. So I want to know whether, is there a specific type of permit required for decks in Philadelphia?
So there is not, and decks are one of those sore spots. So with decks, there is no easy way to get around that. I'm going to give you guys a story. It's kind of a horror story, but so I had a client, one of my first clients, and he built a deck illegally, and he didn't know. He just didn't know, and he went to build an addition for his new coming daughter, and they put the deck in the plans, but the city didn't know that he had a deck. So they were going to have to go through it. Anytime you change the property envelope, whether it's an inch or a foot, it really doesn't matter. The city is going to want to make sure that you are within bounds of the rules. So if you're putting in a deck, you want to make sure that what you're doing is allowable. So and I'm not an architect can explain this much more clearly, but you know, there is definitely a certain distance that you have to keep within based on your zone. So yes, you do have to file for a zoning permit first, and you then have to apply for a building permit. But hopefully the zoning permit won't take that long. Just make sure you hire a really knowledgeable architect so you're not going to get yourself into a situation where your zoning permit is rejected. Because with decks, that's like one of the biggest like areas of zoning rejections, which you then have to go through the variance process, which honestly, like, any attorney is going to tell you, like, there's a way to not go through the variance process. Like, let's try that. So there you go. Short answer, Dak.
So another question, if you're doing something on the interior of the property, and you're not changing the layout of the interior, still need to submit floor plans?
So when you say layout, does that person mean like?
It sounds like they're rehabbing the interior.
Okay, are they changing the plumbing or rewiring anything? Adding any fixtures?
The actual question says, are floor plans required for all permit submissions, even if you aren't changing the layout of the property?
Okay, so yes and no. If you're doing interior work, for plumbing, I mean, depends on what interior. If you're just doing cosmetic, yeah, you do have to go through it, because sometimes cosmetic means rewiring and changing some plumbing fixtures and doing very basic, simple things. But yeah, you need to go through the building permit, and then you have to get a separate permit for electrical or plumbing. if you're going to be going into the walls. So, even if you have the basic framing still up, that's still existent, and you are a single or two-family home, you could get an easy permit, but only if that's your primary residence. So if you can prove it on your license and you're doing a rehab and you live there full time, your license says you do, you can get an easy permit without having to go through the whole standard kit and caboodle of filing with plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now somebody's asking about commercial space. They want to know what your fee structure would be for commercial. Would it start at $950 or would it be higher?
No, it starts at $950 for commercial. Sometimes there's a little bit more information that's needed, but if you're doing a commercial project, you're working with people who are used to doing commercial. Like all the contractors are going to know what to do. So the only time it gets a little bit more expensive on my side is if there's more than one department that requires stamps. So if I'm having to go to more than one department and getting those approvals, then that's where then I start to go hourly. But it's pretty much the same process. I mean, not the same documents, but the same process between the two. Yeah.
Okay, good. And so keeping in this vein of commercial property, question from Joyce. Joyce wants to know, she wants to remove a shower. So basically remove some plumbing inside a commercial property. Obviously she'd need a permit to do that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Think of it this way, if there's money behind it, you need a permit.
Oh man. That's a good rule of thumb. Okay, so question here is for people who have purchased a property in the name of an LLC, is the process any different, or an owner is an owner is an owner? The registered owner?
That's a really good question. So this is a new regulation that actually changed the difference of an owner versus an LLC owned property. And this was back in October of 2019, so last year. The city got fed up with contractors not building compliant housing. And they were submitting a lot of easy permits for single and two-family homes. And what was happening was there was a lot of issues. Buildings were not built up to code. And I'm sure you guys totally understand what I'm talking about. So I'm preaching the choir here. But they started a new regulation where unless you can prove that you are the homeowner of the property, of the single or two-family dwelling, you have to go through the standard building permit process. So automatically, if you're an LLC that owns property, you have to go through standard building permits. There's no question if and or what buts. You have to go through that long process.
Okay. I have a question here from Roger. Roger wants to know, what is the cost of additional stamps and department approvals? Or obviously that varies and then it goes into an hourly rate for you, or how does that work?
Yeah, it definitely varies. So we're kind of in flux right now with the way that we used to do things before the shutdown to the way that we do things now. Right now I'm operating, before it was $500 extra for each department. And that covered everything, the submission, the retrieval, picking it up from L&I, the going to the department. So there's a lot more labor involved with that. Now it's a little bit different. So I operate this on a case-by-case basis, depending on which department, because not all departments are as efficient as using the digital system as others. So it could be something that's just automatic and it's like, oh, okay, the eCLIPSE took care of that. Or it's something that I actually have to reach out separately over an email and submit those, the old way. But Generally, I prefer going and talking to the city in person. So I'm really excited when the city reopens because there's so many questions that a lot of people have that just aren't getting answered digitally when it's way quicker and more efficient when you can talk to them directly in person as they're reviewing the plans.
Right.
So it's, yeah, kind of in flux. So case by case.
And we had a question that came in, the very first question that came in, it was right at the top of your presentation from Rachel. It's about dust control permits. So a very technical question here. She wants to know, are dust control permits for demolition included in the eCLIPSE system? And are you able to look up property to see if there are dust control permits already in place, or is this something that you'd have to follow up with air management services?
So you're talking about like a dust, like, is this like an overlay or is it an actual permit?
I'm not sure. She just put dust control permits for demolition. Rachel, if you're still listening, if you could type into the chat.
Dust control permit.
For demolition.
Yeah. You probably have to go get that stamped by the department and then submit that as like proof that you're conscious of this particular permit, but it should be able to be handled through eCLIPSE, but there's nothing that specific yet inside of eCLIPSE for dust control permits. But what I can do is look into it for you and see if so I work a lot with this demolition contractor. We're actually gearing up to do another project. I'll see if he has any insight. You might be able to file that under just your standard demolition permit and just be really thorough in your description. So, because what I've noticed with some of those really specific, unique niche permits, obviously they're not on eCLIPSE yet, but there's also not the ability to put in custom fields inside of the application. So if that's not the case, depending on when she goes to file it, I would just load up the description and just be like, you know, this is what I'm looking for. But I could actually, if I can take her information, I will certainly get back to her on that, because I'm also curious about filing that through eCLIPSE. Yeah.
Rachel, if you want to post your email address in the Q&A, we'll be able to get that. Okay, great. We will get that to Kelsey. That's great. Awesome. So Kelsey, we also have a couple more questions. At the top, when you were talking about how if the owner of record, if a property has changed hands recently, but the deed, the information hasn't been updated in the system, you as the new owner can upload the HUD sheet, or can you talk a little bit about how you can prove what was the closing,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, yes. So there's two different forms you can put in there that I have experience using. One is the deed, which you have to get the deed stamped, e-stamped. But if you're just submitting a settlement sheet, it just needs to be signed by all the parties, completed and executed. And when you update the owner information inside of eCLIPSE, like I was trying to do, but I didn't want to spend a bunch of time filling it out. Once you get to the end of it, remember I was saying that, you know, all of the different categories of documents above would be reflected in the drop-down categories below as you upload each file and then designate which category it's under. The category, if you click the owner has changed, there will automatically be a category that is there for you to upload the settlement sheet. So just as you would upload the site plans, any kind of energy compliance, you would upload that in that same area. And that will actually update OPA, the OPA address. So if you do that right out the gate as you're filing the initial application, you'll see that the owner has changed when you go back to review it and add more information as per request of the examiner. Did I answer that question correctly?
I need to I'll see if for some reason, so typically in the past when we've done these webinars, you can see who's posting questions, but there's one person that's posting under anonymous attendee. I can't tell if it's one person or 10 people. 10 people are asking questions, or if it's one person who's been asking all the questions. So anonymous attendee, you might have to put your money where your mouth is and hire Kelsey, because you've been asking a lot of questions. Okay, so one last question. With eCLIPSE, are you seeing permits issued before the review time? I'm not sure if I understand that.
I get that. I get that question. So right after the shutdown, there was like this total silence. Nothing was moving. Everyone was like freaking out because they had all these paper-based applications, myself included, and we just didn't know what to do. About 4 weeks in, I would say, when Elle and I issued like their first article after everything shut down, when they were talking about the construction, that the construction needed to stop and all that, they started issuing permits very quickly. I was getting reviews in like 1 to 2 days for standard building permits. And my assumption is because not a lot of people were using eCLIPSE at that point. So fast forward to today, we are now in the, okay, every single permit on my roster has now, you know, gone past the review timeline. So before, yes, now, no. No way. It's like, I would say an average of 5 to 10 days over on the review timelines. And this is even with me and my team putting in support cases and drawing attention to the fact that the permit filing, that the permit review date is past due. So I think it's just right. I think it's just kind of the sign of the times. They move quickly and then they don't. So
Kelsey, have you always been this patient? I mean, what is it about this work that you're so passionate about? Because it is so, I mean, you definitely have to have a lot of patience to do this.
I really enjoy information. I'm extremely curious.
Being a guide.
So, and my father actually, he's an architect. So I did grow up in this world of, you know, town hall meetings and, you know, my father coming in at the end of the day being all disgruntled because the city's making him do more work and put in a septic tank that's way bigger than he wanted. And so, but honestly, I really just, I like working as a mediator with the government. I think that it's a needed thing. And I think that there's not enough resources out there to help people. 'Cause, you know, especially when you're facing times like the shutdown, like I already knew that eCLIPSE was going to be a big hit. Like I was really excited about it. So I got on that like right away, but no one could expect that, you know, the city would be 100% unreachable for a few weeks as everything was playing out. So I think it gives me kind of like a sense of purpose when I am like, oh, I know the answer. I know the answer. Yeah. And but you know, I'm only one person, and you know, my team is growing, but you know, that's why we started a YouTube channel, because I'm like, this is crazy. Why isn't anyone put this information out there? Like,
right. So yeah, give another plug for your YouTube channel. How can people find you on YouTube? Just put in PhillyKelsey?
Yeah, I actually come right up with PhillyKelsey. I've been like kind of playing around with it, but if you go to my website, I actually have on the homepage a little like widget thing that shows some of my videos. And just a forewarning, just disclaimer, my latest video I did without the proper technologies. Don't hate me. It was also a really, really, really hard week. So, but at the end of the day, I was like, okay, content's what matters.
Yes.
I don't care. Just get it out there. So just a precursor, the last video isn't as edited as my previous videos. So.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. This has been great. Okay, so folks, we've reached, man, the time flew by. It's almost 8:30.
Yeah.
And so we're just gonna wrap things up right now. But Kelsey, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
And folks, if you've enjoyed the presentation, please, I wish we could give her a round of applause, but she wouldn't hear it. Please post some positive comments on our Facebook page about Kelsey. Please subscribe to her newsletter, follow her on YouTube, and show her some love, because she definitely gave us an excellent presentation tonight. There's a lot of information out there, and there's nobody at the city who could have done as good a job as she did, telling us about how to navigate the system, because it is overwhelming. It's just very
overwhelming. And I'll also post that the court document in chat too, for you guys to look at.
Okay, great. Yeah, for anybody who misses that, we will also post the link on our Facebook page as well. But for anybody who's still on the call, take a look at the chat to see the link that Kelsey's recommending.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, you guys. And we will be back here next week with L&I. It's kind of the other side of the coin here. A very important workshop next week. And then after that, socially engaged landscape design. And then at the end of the month, the rental improvement fund. So every week, week after week, the Jumpstart Germantown community is bringing you more timely, relevant, and practical information that you can put to use right now, right away. Okay, folks, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay sane, and we will see you back here next week. Thanks a lot, Kelsey. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. And if you could just hang on 1 second, I'm getting the link, and I don't want the chat to end.
Oh, okay. Kelsey, if it's not coming up right away, you can send the link to Derek and he'll post it on Facebook.
Yeah, okay. All right, sounds good.
Some
Sorry
people
about that.
That's fine.
My computer is just acting super, super slow.
After a certain point with Zoom, I don't know what it is, but
yeah.
computers, they start running slower because of all the memory that's being taken up by having the application by Zoom. If you have a whole bunch of things,
you're right.
Yeah, and since you had the Eclipse open,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Actually, I was just able to find it, and I did post it just in time.
Perfect.
So,
okay, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.